Welcome to our first career conversations with the APH ConnectCenter. I am Olaya Landavillard, the director of the APH ConnectCenter, and I'm really happy to be a part of this really cool initiative that was put together by our Richard Rueda. And in just a minute, they'll introduce themselves. But before we get going on introductions, I want to learn, and just like the rest of us want to learn, who is all in the room with us today. So I'm going to launch a poll really quickly here, and I will read it out to you with the options as well for you to choose. I'm going to launch it. Okay, so the poll is launched. The first question is, what is your job title? Are you a teacher of students with visual impairments, a low vision specialist, orientation and mobility specialist, vision rehab specialist, therapist or teacher, assistive technology specialist, college or faculty state admin or administration, student in a college program, a parent or other? And when you indicate other in the chat box, go ahead and put in what your other stands for so we can recognize it. The second question is, where are you from? Are you from the Northeast US, the Southeast US, Northwest US, Southwest US, Midwest US, Alaska, Hawaii, US territory, Canada, European country, or other? And again, if you fall in the other category, please enter it in the chat. We'd love to recognize it. And then our third and final question is, how did you hear about this webinar? Through the APH website, the email from APH, university faculty, social media, ACB REP website, a friend or colleague, or other. And again, for other category, you know what to do with the chat. And I will give us just a few more seconds. There are still people filing into the room, and there's still people trying to answer the question. So I want to give everybody and as many people an opportunity as possible. Okay.
Hello, Dave in Wisconsin. Good to see you there.
Nice. Great. Okay. We have about 60% so far participating, so I'll end it. And if you don't get a chance to answer the questions, you can always enter this information in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share the results. So for number one, what is your job title? We've got 33% teachers of students with visual impairments, 7% orientation and mobility specialists. We don't have any low vision specialists in the room. We have 5% vision rehab specialist, therapist, or teacher, 10% assistive technology specialist, 2% college faculty or state administration, 5% student in a college program, 10% parent, and 50% other. So we're probably going to have a lot of info in the chat there. So that's great.
Job seekers and students, yeah. I'm imagining.
This is great. And then for number two, we have 12% from the Northeast US, 12% from the Southeast US, 19% from the Northwest US, 17% Southwest US, 26% Midwest US. We don't have anybody from Alaska or Hawaii tonight, or anyone from a US territory, at least that were able to answer the poll questions before we ended it. 10% from Canada. We don't have anybody from European country, and we have 5% other. And then our third question, how did you hear about this webinar? 5% from the APH website, 64% an email from APH. We don't have anybody who found out from a university faculty. 5% social media, 0% ACB REP website, friend or colleague, 17%, and other falls into 10%. So great. We have APH emails are definitely working.
Great.
That's great. Okay. Oh, we have somebody from Australia.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome. This is awesome. Okay, I'm going to minimize that. There's a few housekeeping items I need to go through, and then I'm going to hand it over to Richard. First of all, if you have any questions or comments, of course, you'll put it in the chat box. make sure that the chat box is set to all panelists and attendees so that everybody can see your questions or comments. Also want to let you know that the webinar is being recorded, and you can find the link to replay at the link that I am putting into the chat box for you. And then if you are looking for more events like this, you can visit our Connect calendar at aphconnectcenter.org/events to see what's coming up. And I'm also putting that in the chat box for you. If you need help with us spreading the word to the vision community about an event you are offering, you can actually post your event to our Connect calendar. And I am adding that information along with that link into the chat box as well, where you can put in your what's happening in your area. And then, of course, to see all of our upcoming webinars, the list of those, you can go to the aphconnectcenter.org/webinars link. And again, that's something else that's going in the chat. Also, if you need any assistance, you can always email us at ConnectCenter, one word, at aph.org. And we also have the information and referral line that can be reached Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Through 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the phone number is 1-800-232-5463. And that information is also being put into the chat. And when you call that number, we actually have 2 live team members who will be answering your phone call. Yep. So please take advantage of that awesome service that we provide. And we'd love to hear from you. All right. I think I've done all my part. Richard, I'm going to hand it over to you. You're welcome.
Good afternoon and good evening, everybody. Welcome to the inaugural Career Conversations with the APH ConnectCenter and CareerConnect. My name is Richard Rueda. I am the Digital Content Manager for CareerConnect, and I am super happy, very thrilled to be with all of you today. And we're going to encourage conversation in that chat box as soon as we get to know our guest and hear a little bit about who she is and what she does. And again, this is Career Conversations. This is going to be a monthly offering from the Connect Center and CareerConnect. I want to thank Olaya and Katie, my colleagues, for being here and helping field some of those questions. As you get to hear Lucy and her story and learn more about who she is as a blind professional, put your questions in the chat box. We'll get to them. And later on, after those questions are addressed, if you do have a burning question, raise your hand and we'll acknowledge you. We will prefer to go with the questions in the chat box first. So again, welcome to Career Conversations. The first Thursday of each month at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific, we will be here, rain or shine. So thank you everybody for registering and attending. If you like what you hear today, share it with a friend. Again, today is Career Conversations. I am excited to introduce and welcome Miss Lucy Greco, who is Accessibility Evangelist with the University of Berkeley. Lucy, welcome to Career Conversations.
Thank you, Richard. I am ecstatic to be here. This is a wonderful idea to be able to connect with people and spread the word about how we can become more connected and more employed.
Now, I've known you for over 20 years in various capacities in my role as a rehabilitation counselor, as a colleague, as someone who knows you through goalball and everything. Let's start with your job title. What is an accessibility evangelist, and what do you do?
So an accessibility evangelist is a title I picked for myself, just to make it completely clear. And my job is to spread the information about how to be accessible and what is accessibility and how things for people with disabilities can be made easier to use. I don't only focus on blindness, I focus on all different disabilities. So primarily I work with the web, but I also do other types of technologies and other parts of life in general. So an accessibility evangelist is basically somebody who shares the good word about how to be as accessible as you can and how to make things work for people with disabilities.
In your current role in the University of Berkeley, being an accessibility evangelist, what does that mean in your day-to-day job? What does that mean in your paid job as an accessibility evangelist, that you were able to give your own title to. So what do you do at UC Berkeley?
So my number one priority role is working with people developing new websites. That is, I'd have to say about 75% of the work I do. And it's looking at the websites as they're being developed to try and determine how accessible they are for people with all kinds of disabilities. And then coaching and advising the people writing those websites on what to do to fix them. So myself and another colleague of mine who is more of a technical person will look at a website with a screen reader. We'll look at it for color contrast issues. We'll see how well somebody using speech dictation can actually access the website. And most importantly, we'll make sure that every single thing on that website can be done with a keyboard or any other form of assistive technology. So that's, again, 75% of what I do. The rest of my work is training people on best practices and telling them, about, new things that are coming out that make things more accessible, or as the opposite may be, things that are not accessible. I test products that the university wants to buy that are digital and help the university try and buy the most accessible products we can. And lastly, I go out and do public speaking like this. I speak at conferences, I speak at events like this one, just sharing the, as the title Evangelist says, I share the good word about accessibility.
So Lucy, and thank you for sharing that. For the active job seeker who's watching, for the transition age youth who's watching, for even the rehabilitation counselor who's watching, it is becoming an accessibility evangelist something you do to get a degree, certification? How do you get to become an accessibility evangelist? How do you get to call yourself that? What education, what experience is required?
So you need to have some technical background. It is not something that, because you know how to use a screen reader, you can become. It is a lot of people who think that they're going to break into the industry say, oh, I know how to use a screen reader, so I can go out there and test things and use these tools. No, that's not what an accessibility evangelist is. That is what a screen reader tester is. But an accessibility evangelist knows a little bit about, what the technology is being used to build things like websites or applications. And they know a lot about what the different disabilities effects and impacts are. So for example, you need to know how a person with a speech impediment might need to do something. And you need to know how a person who has no use of their hands can actually access technology. So it is a lot of learning about disabilities first, and then learning about the technological solutions for people with disabilities. There are some assistive technology certifications, and those help, but you have to go above and beyond and work with other people first and understand how people with disabilities do the daily things that they need to do and what the impact to them is when things are not made properly. So it's kind of a second stage career, not really a first stage career, if that makes sense.
Yes, and thank you. If you're joining us, welcome to Career Conversations. Today we're talking with Lucy Greco, Accessibility Evangelist with the University of California, Berkeley. And if you've got questions, put them in the chat box. In the next 5 to 10 minutes, we will be fielding those questions. Olaya and Katie will be monitoring that. Lucy, was this your career goal growing up, or did the career choose you, or why did you choose this career path?
That's a really good question, Richard. For me, my career goal was something to do with physical therapy or sports. And as a blind student going to college in the 80s and 90s, I was never able to actually achieve that career goal because the assistive technology that we use today wasn't available then. So when I needed to take an anatomy course, I couldn't get tactile diagrams. When I needed to do the math and do the science and physics that was required to get into that program, it was impossible for me to do that. I couldn't find somebody to help me, and I couldn't find the technology that's available today to do that goal. So naturally, what I did was, as I was going through school, I found my own ways to do things, and I found ways to make tactile diagrams, and I found ways to do different science and physics. And that's kind of the natural progression to becoming an access technology person, is a desire and a wish to actually want to find ways for people with disabilities to do things. You know, I remember while I was in college, I met a person who had a brain injury, and it was really, really hard for her to read things. And so I helped her find ways to actually get through her college work by introducing her to a computer and a screen reader. And it was kind of a natural progression for me. More and more of my friends who were blind came to me and said, "You're using a computer. Does it help? You know, is it making your workload any better?" And I always said yes. And so I naturally became the person who worked with them and taught them. And eventually, you know, mid 2000s come along. I'd been working now as a consultant for many years. Berkeley offered me the opportunity to do this professionally for all disabled students at Cal. And, you know, my job then was working with them and seeing what they needed and helping them find tools. So then the progression went to, instead of actually fixing problems that student had one person at a time, now the university has me look at things before they get to the students to do what we call a systemic fix, so that it works out of the box for everyone, instead of having to, you know, accommodate the person over there who's using a wheelchair and has no use of their hands, and the person over on the other side of campus who's blind. We hope to make everything as accessible as possible from the beginning.
Wonderful. And I've got about 3 more really good, curious questions for you, for our audience. But folks, if you're joining us, you're in Career Conversations, welcome to the space. We will field some questions in a few minutes, and get ready for that. So Lucy, as an accessibility evangelist, as an employee working at UC Berkeley, what is the greatest challenge you face on your current job in terms of getting, you know, the accessibility needs met? What are some of the greatest challenges you face doing your job well?
Being able to communicate to as many people as possible. My biggest barrier is time and money. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So, you know, being able to get to the people who need to know the information is really key and really critical. And, you know, I work for a public university, and, you know, if I had my druthers, I would never work for a public university, because we're always resource strapped and it's always really, really tough. So, you know, that's the hardest thing about my work. I mean, luckily, since my job is digital, I don't need very many accommodations. I mean, I have a screen reader. I'm very good with a computer. I'm an early adopter. I like to use new technology. The biggest thing is getting enough time and getting enough resources to go out there and reach as many people as possible. It's actually a really accessible job.
Yeah, and it's remote. I see you're working remote, right? Is that part of the package right now? And
that is exactly part of the package right now. I mean, I used to be a person who was on campus, but COVID changed things. And we've discovered that because I'm doing more remote work, I'm actually having a higher impact now. You know, when I had to walk a half hour between buildings on campus, and yes, it would take a half hour to walk from one end of the Berkeley campus to another.
I believe it. I've been there.
Yeah, that's time lost with customers. So now, you know, I can literally go from a Zoom meeting every hour on the hour with barely 10 minutes for a bio break in between. So they found that remote means I have a bigger impact and a much wider impact. So the nice thing about working for Berkeley is Berkeley has, as part of its mission, a public impact. So doing conversations like this is actually work for me. And because we are going remote and I'm sitting here at a computer, I can talk to people all over the world. So during COVID, for example, I spoke to a conference in Seattle. I spoke to another conference in New York. I spoke to a conference in Brazil, all because, you know, I can sit at my desk and visit these places and give people the good word.
Now, I've got one more big question for you. We're going to talk about some of the reviews you've done and maybe some cooking and gold ball, some of the fun stuff. But folks, get ready. Do we have questions queued up, Olaya and Katie? And you are watching Career Conversations with APH ConnectCenter, and welcome.
Yep, we do have some questions.
Okay, great. I'm just queuing them up. They're on deck. I'm going to ask Lucy one more question so you guys can
Oh, okay.
figure out what you want, who you want to go first. But I just wanted to get that ready. Lucy, talk to us about what is Lucy when she's not being an accessibility evangelist for UC Berkeley. Tell us about, I know you do reviews, you have a YouTube channel and you review espresso makers and all these really cool gadgets. How do you get to do that? And do you get paid for that? Or is it just what you do to unplug, if you will?
So for me, accessibility is what I live, what I breathe. It's the blood that's pumping through my body. It's really, really important to me. So when I leave work, it's really hard for me to leave it behind. And, you know, there are people who will tell you that that's really not a good thing. So what I've done is I turn to the stuff that's a lot more fun and a lot more interesting to me after I leave the work, but it's still accessibility stuff. I think about what impacts me in my daily life and I try and find ways around it. And then I talk to my friends and then I decided to bring it to YouTube. So for example, I'm known in our friend community as a person who can cook and cook really well.
Yes, I agree.
And Richard, you were actually one of the first people to hire me as a cooking instructor over 25 years ago.
That's right.
Yeah, it was wonderful. And, you know, I used to tell people in those days, I love to teach people how to cook. It's so much more enjoyable and so much more fun than teaching people how to use a computer. Teaching people how to use a computer was vital and critical, but teaching people how to cook was just fun, interesting. And, you know, it was not as frustrating because, and I'm going to touch wood here, a stove has never crashed on me yet. You know, stoves are still not very computerized. And, you know, in my house, it's going to be as long as possible before I have a stove that could possibly crash. But I realized that a lot of my friends and a lot of blind people that I don't know might want some of the tips and tricks and tools that I had. And so I decided to start a YouTube channel. And so I teach people how to cook on my YouTube channel. And, you know, midway through the pandemic, I had to buy a new household appliance. It was a desperate time and the appliance broke. And it was one of those things that you can't get away without having, a washing machine.
Oh, yeah.
I bought the washing machine and I couldn't use it. And I had had enough. I was just completely fed up. And so I went and, as my husband likes to put it, I expressed my dissatisfaction on the internet. And I published a video about how inaccessible this washing machine I bought was. And, you know, it was on my normal YouTube channel and, you know, it was, you know, 3 or 4 views. And then I posted it, I think, on a Sunday afternoon. And oh my God, Monday afternoon, we looked at it and it's like 20,000 views and 30,000 views. And by midnight that night, it was up to 50,000 views. And it was like, what happened here? Why is everybody watching this video? And so today it's close to 200,000 views. And it, you know, after reading through the comments, and people tell you should never read the comments because there's a bunch of trolls up there. There were no trolls.
Right.
Everybody said, give us more, give us more. So I've done a second review of a robot vacuum now. And I have one sitting on my camera right now that I'm about to release, as you said, for an espresso machine. And I even got a sponsor for my next 3 upcoming videos. So
wow, that's exciting. If you can, maybe you can share with our viewers your YouTube page, or or do you know it, or can you share it?
I don't know it by heart, but just do a search for Lucy Greco, Know Before You Buy. That's the reviews. And then that will bring you to my YouTube channel where all my food videos and my appliance review channel is.
Wonderful. Well, I can sit here all day and ask questions, but I know where you live. And thank you for participating in Career Conversations. We're not done yet, and I certainly have some follow-up questions, but let's go to the audience. If you're a transition age youth, if you're a job seeker, or perhaps a professional and you want to ask Lucy a question, put them there in the chat, and towards the end, we'll even open up for a question you can ask. Olaya, Katie, what do we've got?
Yeah, so we have a lot of great questions and some feedback coming in through chat. It's really good to see, and my braille display is hopping around merrily. But one of our first questions is kind of going back to the accessibility piece a little bit. And Lucy, can you talk about the accessibility or maybe lack thereof of online education platforms? What are your thoughts on those?
That is something I spend a lot of time in, and it's a moving target. Some of those platforms are really good one day, and then all of a sudden they update themselves and something changes and it becomes a horrifying nightmare. I mean, it's really something that we have to care more about in education, and we have to be really strong and really hard to advocate for. So I'm not going to promise you that every online platform for education is accessible, but I think if you stand up and speak out for what you need and what you want and what doesn't work for you, and make the school you're going to know where the problems are and what the problems are, people like me working at universities around the country and around the world will have more ammunition to get those platforms working better for you.
Great question. Thanks, Katie.
Yes. Is there one that you would say, is there an education platform that you think is the most accessible, or do you have any recommendations?
Like I said, it's such a moving target that I'm not going to actually say one is better than any other. I mean, we use one at Berkeley, and I thought it was really good several years ago. And the last test I did, most of the parts of it were working great, but then all of a sudden a blind student couldn't take the test, or a dragon couldn't actually activate the links to do what they needed to do. So,
oh goodness.
And we do have a strict policy at Berkeley that I am not allowed to endorse anybody.
Sure.
Any platform is what you mean?
Yeah, I can't endorse any product. So I can't say this product is better than others.
Got it.
Yeah.
This next question is just a great question, and it's I think it's going to spark a lot of good discussion. Can you talk about, is there a difference between usability and accessibility?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is a big trend, especially in the US, for what they call usable experiences. And they talk about how if you have a usable experience, it's accessible. And I can't tell you how angry it gets me to hear that, because usable experiences aren't necessarily accessible. A usable experience is something that, you know, a small fraction of the population can go through and actually use it and do something with it. Something that is accessible is something that everyone, no matter what their disability or what their mode of accessing the information is, can get to, use, and accomplish a task in. So, you know, they talk about digital learning, and they talk about, oh, I can't remember the acronym right now for usable learning. And they say, oh, you just make it so there's multiple modalities and people can, you know, you'll have no problem with accessibility. And the problem is all those multiple modalities doesn't make it more accessible. It just gives you more options to fight with to find an inaccessible solution. So, you know, somebody may have 5 or 6 different modalities that they're teaching in, but if they haven't actually thought about accessibility, none of those 5 different modalities will work for a person with a disability. Whereas when we tell people that if you start with accessibility and work up towards usability from there, everything that's accessible is usable. Everything that's usable isn't necessarily accessible.
You mean universal design for learning? Is that what you were looking
Thank you.
for?
Thank you.
Okay.
That was the acronym.
No, I was like, oh, I know what it is. I feel like I won, like a, you know.
And technically, I'm still on vacation. I don't need to go back to work next week. So, you know, I turned my acronym brain off.
No, I understand. Believe me, when you need it, it's not there. I got
Right.
it. Yep.
But
Perfect.
it is, yes. I mean, the acronym of Universal Design for Learning, it angers me. Because the people do think that it is really something that, you know, oh, just make a universal design for learning. You'll be fine. Everything will be fine.
No.
No, you know, think about the accessibility, and then think about the multiple modalities. And each of those modalities have their own form of accessibility. You know, it's really interesting because people don't think, for example, that a blind person is a visual learner. but I am a very visual learner. I need to actually have an idea of where things are and how things are laid out, and a quote picture in my head. I've been totally blind since birth, but I still need to be that visual learner. But if you make things accessible for me, I can build that picture myself. If you just have a visual learner's modality, you're going to put things down in a visual way and not make them accessible for me.
So before we go to the next question, again, welcome to Career Conversations. This is our first in a monthly series we'll be doing. So we've got presenters and guest people we will be interviewing every month. And so welcome to the space. It's so great to see so many of you. We've got Lucy Greco, Accessibility Evangelist from UC Berkeley. Thank you, Lucy, again for joining us. We're about halfway through. We've got some questions. I've got a question for you, Lucy. So I'm putting myself in the job seeker role, the transition age youth, and I want to be you when I grow up. What does it take to become an accessibility evangelist? Let's say I'm 20 years old. I don't know what I really want to do. My rehab counselor's pressuring me to have a plan, and I geek out on screen readers. I know a thing or two about accessibility, but what will I need to do to become an accessibility evangelist or something close to what you do?
The first thing you need to do is think outside of your own self. You need to think about talking to other people who have different disabilities and different life situations, and find out how they do things and what they do, and find out what their barriers are and what their successes are. Chatting with people. I mean, I understand that the core of your Career Connect project, Richard, is mentoring. Find yourself not only one mentor, but 3 or 4 people, and make them people with various different disabilities and various different situations and life experiences, and talk to them about how they do things. It's most important to understand people. I mean, when it comes down to it, yes, my job is a technology job, but it really is serving people and making sure that people get what they need. So, your number one thing is start talking to mentors.
Networking, mentoring, okay.
Networking, mentoring, number one thing. I mean, I've always been told I'm a good networker, and that's why I've probably gotten as far as I have. But the other thing is to, always push your own limits.
Yes.
Don't, if somebody asks you if, you want to try this piece of software, and you push yourself. Your first chance at it might be inaccessible. Try and find alternative ways, and find some way to hack it or break it or make it work for you. And those experiences are going to be very, very valuable when you become an access technology person. It's always, education is going to be critical in, you don't have to be a you don't have to be a scientist, but you do have to know the process and the way to learn things. So, my degree, just so everybody knows, is not in computer science. It's not in access technology. I have an English literature degree. And I have to say, the 4 people I respect the most in my industry all come from English literature degrees. I do respect a lot of other people who have computer science backgrounds or technology backgrounds, but people who are working in the field come from various different areas. And going to school and going to college and learning how to actually learn about everything else around you is what's really important.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And then it's also really important to try and find ways to work with people and experiment and test things out. Like, find somebody who's willing to be your guinea pig and try something that you fixed to make sure it works. Don't assume that because you fixed it for you, as we just said about universal design, that you fixed it for everyone.
Great. Katie, do we have any more questions?
We do. Yes, we do. So some really great questions coming in here. So one of which is, how do you feel about the advances in technology? How do you think those have affected the challenges and opportunities for you as a person who's blind and students as well?
So I think students today are in a really, really lucky space. I spoke about when I was going to college and how I really wanted to become a physical therapist and couldn't. And I think students today actually have better opportunities than we did. Sadly, I don't think students are taking advantage of them as much as they should. I don't see students fighting when they can't get what they need. If an instructor told me I couldn't take their class because I was blind, you could be sure I was at their boss's office and saying, you can't stop me. I need to find a way to do this. And I need to be able to get my degree and get through college. So for example, when I was in a math class, they said to me, you can't take math if you want Braille. We're not going to Braille it for you. And then it turned out that I worked with the dean and I worked with the instructor, and we found a way for me to get through the math classes. But today, if you go through any college or university, law requires that they accommodate you. You need to know what you need, but then when you go to them and work with them, they will give you what you need. They won't give you what you want. Let me be perfectly clear. Just because you want something isn't what you need, but they will give you the tools you need. Compared to when Richard and I were going to school, we often didn't get accommodated through classes, and we still had to take those classes and make our way through.
Indeed.
So I think for students, you're in a really great place. If I was 18 again and going to college right now to become a physical therapist, I think I could do it, because there's tactile graphics being produced, there's 3D printing. It's a better place for students who are blind or students who have other disabilities. When it comes to technology in general, the technology that's taking over, it goes through peaks. It goes through times where it's really, really low and things are very, very inaccessible. And then it's slowly and quickly, gradually moves up the hill. We get more and more accessible, and then it crashes, it dives. So like I said, one of the tools we use on campus 3 years ago when I tested it was excellent. And as I tested again, there's little things coming out of the woodwork that are inaccessible. And when we talk about tools for our home, for example, we've got some really cool toys right now that we can use as blind people. We've got, the personal assistants, the Echo, the Google Home, the Siri HomePod. All these things are in our homes that do things for us that, we didn't have the opportunity to do before. And they work. But then we go and we buy that brand new air fryer that has no tactile buttons, and we can't actually find the buttons.
It's a flat screen.
It's a flat screen. Exactly. And so, that's why I'm doing my Know Before You Buy project, is because I think companies, when they hear the problems and hear what's going on, will fix things, but they just don't know. They're not aware. As much as you'd like to think that everybody knows that blind people are out there and need things, only 1 in every 3,000 people, 4,000 people has actually ever met a person with a disability. And so by going out there and creating awareness, I'm helping. And, I have to tell you that washing machine video I did, the company who made it fixed the problems, and I can now use my washing machine.
And they're located in Korea, weren't they? So you had international influence.
Exactly.
Wow, that's really cool. Again, you are on Career Conversations with APH ConnectCenter. Welcome. It's so great to see so many of you. Today we have Lucy Greco, Accessibility Evangelist with the University of California, Berkeley. Katie?
Sure. So we have, again, some good questions coming in here. One of which is, do you find that your job is exciting? And what are some of your goals moving forward?
I like that one.
I love that one. There are times when my job is very exciting. There have been times in the past couple of years where I have found a new technology that actually worked, and I get really excited and really animated. And I get very excited when I find somebody who actually cares. So maybe the thing I'm looking at that they created isn't as accessible as possible, but they can start thinking about it. And, I can tell in the room that they're already at the point where they're they're going to make a big difference and a big impact. It is extremely exciting for me to know that over the years I've influenced people and I've made people understand the needs of accessibility. It's, that's what I find really, really rewarding and exciting about my job. I mean, I was at the big technology conference 3-4 years ago now. CSUN, Richard.
Yes, CSUN, yep.
Yep, it's a huge conference. And I was working an event at that conference and doing some awareness training at that event. And all of a sudden, this woman comes running across the huge room that we were in, and she's all excited. She goes, "Lucy, I'm so glad to see you." And it's like, I'm like, "Hi." And I had no idea who this woman was, and I had nothing to do. She goes, "You started me on my career. And I am now the accessibility lead at the company I work at." And I'm like, that is such a wonderful feeling and a wonderful sensation.
Yes.
And that's not the only time it's happened, but it's, that's the reward for me, is knowing that, the website I'm working on today might not be accessible, but it might become accessible. And that the people I've influenced and impacted have gone to places and are doing things.
That's a great feeling. You have to be just kind of on the cloud when you hear that. It just makes your day, makes your, like, this is why I do what I do.
Exactly. And you have to hold on to those experiences. It's really important. Like when you're looking at the most inaccessible piece of junk that you've ever reviewed, you remember that the people that you're reviewing it for could be the next person to be running across that room, excited to see you.
So Lucy, I have a follow-up question to that. What do you hope to review on your YouTube channel that you haven't yet, that you would love to share, that maybe you can tell us about? Like, it's something that's maybe out there on the shelves that you're like, oh, I want to get my hands on this.
Well, okay, so this is a really personal thing. The thing that caused me to actually, the washing machine was the last straw, but the thing I was working on before the last straw was finding an accessible massage chair.
Ooh.
And massage chairs about 10 years ago were actually pretty good for accessibility because all they had was a start and a stop button.
I like it, yes.
They had a couple of functions and you could do it. I have not found any of the ones that are on the market today that can be used by a person who's blind. And it's really frustrating. And it's a pandemic related thing for me because, so I couldn't buy a massage chair, so I went and got massages. Well, all of a sudden during the pandemic, you can't see a masseuse. So now what do I have to do? So, I would love to find a massage chair that I can use and bring into my home and take care of my back that's sore and stiff after sitting at a computer for 10 or 12 hours a day.
So, and again, you're participating in Career Conversations, a new series offered by the APH ConnectCenter. Welcome everybody. We'll be doing these monthly. I will just tease out that next month we have Gina Harper, who's a Senior Vice President and Financial Consultant with Morgan Stanley, and really great person who I also know personally, and you'll get to hear her story and all the unique things she's accomplished. And so that will be February 3rd. And I welcome you back. If you registered for today's event, you will get an opportunity to register for that event in a couple of weeks. We're coming down to the last 10 minutes. Katie, Olaya, do we have any questions, or do we have any hands up that people want to ask Lucy a question?
We do have another one in chat that I would like to,
Sure.
I think might be appropriate or a good one. And thanks for mentioning about the upcoming event, because that question was asked as well, as are these going to continue on the first Thursday, because the person
Yes.
wants to promote it. So with their staff, or with their students. But this question is about, have you worked with any employment specialists that have helped you, find a job or to get a job? Or can you talk a little bit how you've navigated the finding and getting a job space?
For me, the finding and getting a job has always been network, and a little bit more network.
Yes.
I mean, when I was a consultant and doing in-home training for people like Richard, knew I was doing that and had clients that they wanted me to train. And I had a really good network, and the university had somebody who was part of my network. When they had a job come up that they thought I could fill, they introduced me and I got that job. I changed my job I've been at the university now for 16 years. I used to work with students, and now I'm working, like I said, from the other side to make everything accessible before it gets to them. And because I got familiar with people at all levels at the university, I mean, the person who actually created my new job was the third in command at IT. And he said, we got to do this. You've got to come over here. We got to do it this way. And so just network and network with people with disabilities and network with people without disabilities is, the number one thing. It's so true that the way you find and get a job is by who you know. And, one of the best ways to do that too is going to college. They say the most benefit of going to college is not what you learn in the classroom, it's the people you meet on the campus.
Yes, good point. And thank you, Lucy. Do we have any final questions out there, Katie and Olaya?
We have a phone hand. Do you want to take some hands?
Yeah, we're down to the last 10 minutes or so. Let's if you've got a question and you want to raise your hand and you haven't yet put it in the chat, you still can, but we'll acknowledge some of our hand folks out there.
All right, so phone number ending in 0684, you should be able to talk.
Yes, hi. I have a question that I think maybe there's some other people who have this same challenge. I would like to reinvent myself, and I'd like to be a lifelong learner. I'm just asking for your comments. I think you know what you'll say. Try to figure it out, network. But I would like to be a lifelong learner and take some classes. And I'm meeting obstacles because I'm kind of no longer a client of the Department of Rehab. And some of these obstacles are financial. I already have my BA, but I'd like to start a second career, maybe get a certificate. Do you have any comments? I'm sure you know this is a difficult situation.
Do you know? Go ahead, Lucy. Go ahead.
Are you looking at technology specifically that you want to work with, or are you?
I'm open to a lot of things. I have thought of a number of certificates. For example, a certificate in nutrition leads right to chemistry, which I'm good in science, but I'm not sure how that's going to work out being totally blind. And I got my original BA before I had any visual impairment. So, if you have any comments about how I can start approaching this. And technology, certainly I've been thinking about teaching assistive technology because it's been kind of a struggle for me to always get good instruction. And I'm sure you're familiar with this kind of situation.
Yeah, so the best thing to do, and yes, it is you're exactly right that it is going to be network. But for example, if you're interested in nutrition or if you're specifically interested in chemistry, there are blind people out there who do that. There are blind people who are working in that field today. And, send them an email. They're very open and very, willing to help people. And they can talk to you about the problems they have and how they overcame the challenges of getting through that field. Richard, I'm assuming you're planning on having our most famous California chemist come online at some point.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Yep. We can't say dates yet because we probably don't have them, but, keep an eye on CareerConnect, and I'm sure that there'll be at least one chemist on this conversation.
Thank you. And again, it's kind of there are some financial issues too, but I guess it's the same thing. Try to find a scholarship or something if you're no longer considered by Department of Rehab, a client, and at a certain age, I think they do question that. So thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's going to be a good thing too, but if you start talking to people, they'll be able to tell you of ways you can volunteer. And when you volunteer, you may volunteer yourself into a job eventually that will pay you. Start doing it for free. Don't test things for people for free. I refuse to let people test things for people for free, but, work with a college, like maybe work with a high school that needs somebody to help students in a chemistry lab and learn about it.
Do we have other hands raised, Katie, or questions in the chat? We're about to wrap it up in the next 10 or so minutes.
Sure. Let's see here. I want to give, we have, don't see any other hands. Elia, do you see anything in chat? I've been looking at the hands here a little bit, so I think there's some stuff in chat that might have come in, I think. I've seen some chatter.
Yep, I'm looking, there's like 25 new
There's
messages.
a lot in chat right now. It's very active. It's a very engaged audience.
You ask and you shall
love it.
receive.
Yes.
Yes.
I know, right? So there's like, it's okay, let's see. Like, which one do we pick, right? There's one that's talking about going to med school. Is it possible to become a doctor, and what kind of doctor? And do I have advantage to get into med school and get hired because of low vision? I don't know if we can address that.
I know that there's at least 2 or 3 blind people who've made it through med school.
Wow, nice.
And the thing is you've got to reach out and you've got to find them, and you've got to ask questions. Look at the online forums and look at the online chats, and they've got to be somewhere. I have heard, for example, that there was a low vision person who went through the program at UCSF.
Lucy, is our friend Heidi, was she in med school, or was that a different program, the one that we were thinking for career conversations?
She's a psychologist, but what she does is work with doctors.
Right. She might be a good connection.
Yeah. So she works in a medical practice as a psychologist, but she works with the doctors and helps the doctors recognize, psychological disorders and helps them treat their patients more effectively.
Yes.
Wow.
And she's someone I'm hoping to connect with for career conversations. We've got a lot of cool people lined up. So if you like what you see today, you won't be disappointed in the future. I guarantee you that.
Let's very powerful.
We have another hand if you want to take it.
Yeah, let's take another hand.
And before we do the hand, Richard, there was a question about how often these conversations are happening. I know once a month.
Once a month, and they will be posted on our YouTube page. But if you go to aphcareerconnect.org and look under success stories and succeed at work, we have a ton of other videos up there. Russell Shaver from Walmart. We have Joe Strecce, who was in this space before, interviewing lots of really cool people. Dr. Mona Mankara, who's the blind chemist. She's up there, and a ton of other people we've interviewed. We have blogs, articles, and success stories. So if you like what you see here, we've got some up on Career Connect right now, and along with other resources, and we'll be doing these every month. So by December, you'll have 12 people you can share, and then we'll be doing these every month. And sometimes we'll do an encore presentation if we have a time-sensitive one. So definitely. Katie, whose hand is up?
We have Kim Taylor. So Kim, you should be able to unmute and ask your question.
Hello?
Yes.
I have 2 questions. One, is the person who's going next month, are they visually impaired as well?
Yes, every speaker we will feature in this space will be blind and or low vision.
Okay, and then the other question is, Lucy, do you live in Berkeley?
I do, yes.
Nice, so do I.
All right.
Very nice.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for participating. Any other questions out there that we want to address? Coming down to the wire, and thank everyone participating in career conversations with Lucy Greco, accessibility evangelist with the University of California, Berkeley.
Richard, I want to thank you for letting me come and do your inaugural event here.
Yes.
It's really exciting for me to know that we're reaching out to people as far as away as Australia about the importance of getting to know other people who are blind or visually impaired and having them help us find ways to become successful. I mean, it's really, really important. I can't emphasize how strong it is and important it is to know people and to actually talk to people and learn from them. It's, the community of blind people is a very rich, vibrant community, and I don't think I would be successful without them.
I want to underscore what you said and kind of throughout the call. Really, get out. When I was 19 and 20, I was very shy and bashful, believe it or not. I could never conduct an interview like this, but you have to step out of your comfort zone, especially if you're a young person, you're a job seeker, and you really want to make it out there. Network with the blindness groups, network with the ACB and NFB groups. They all have special divisions and affiliations, from student groups to doctor groups to lawyer groups to teacher groups. And in those groups alone, you'll meet successful people who can take you under their wing and be mentored. So look at those groups, look at your local community in the city and town you live in. Look where all the cool blind people are at, and get to know them, because they have paved the way in many ways in some of the career paths you may choose yourself.
And try different things. I mean, for me, I think the thing that made me the person I am is playing sports, being part of sports and activities. And, I was a Paralympic goalball player, and, being on a team really taught me about working with people. And, it also gave me a channel for my frustration and gave me the ability to go out there and do things. And it introduced me to people I wouldn't have otherwise met. I went to Korea and I met a bunch of people in Korea, some of which I still email with today.
You just don't know who you're going to meet. And I'll tell you, if you go to Lucy's YouTube video page for cooking, she makes a mean chili. I promise you. So she knows how to have fun and cook and do other things. I'll go to Katie and Elia one more time. Any final questions? We're just
We do.
Okay.
Yes, we have a couple hands. You want to take them?
Let's take a couple of hands and we'll yeah.
So Belinda, you should be able to unmute.
Hello, Belinda.
There we go. Sorry about that. How important is the sighted community to becoming successful when you're blind? I know that there's that connection with the blind community. Are there connections within the sighted community?
Oh my God, that's such a fantastic question. I'm so glad you asked it. It is as important. It's not higher or lower, but it is as important to actually be able to interact in the sighted community. After all, like I said previously, only 1 in every 3,000 or 4,000 people have ever met a blind person. When you're going to get a job, unless you're doing a specialized job that's actually in the blindness community, you may not have other blind people to deal with, and you need to be able to interact and be sociable and actually be able to speak with them and engage with them at their level. You can't expect them all to, become blind to talk to you. You have to be able to become sighted and talk with them and interact with them. There are so many blind people that, buy these devices that are just for blind people and then get frustrated because they don't work and there's nobody to help them. I refuse to believe in these products that are just for blind people. I like to work on things that sighted people use. And then when they don't work for me, I go to other sighted people and I say, how does this work for you? Let's work on it together. And,
so I'm hearing proprietary technology isn't your favorite technology.
Oh, you know that from when you were a rehab counselor.
I'm just checking you for the audience here. Yeah. Belinda, that was a great question. You've got another hand. I'm sorry, go ahead and finish that up, Lucy, but
I think that's perfect, Belinda. That was a fabulous question. And yes, learn how to be a sighted person as well as a blind person.
Mary Whitmire, you should be able to unmute and ask your question.
Hello.
Hi there, Mary.
Can you guys hear me? Oh.
Yes.
Yep.
Hi. So I have a question. So when I registered, it said that Lucy plays video games. So
yes.
I'm wondering, because I'm a gamer myself, and I play on Xbox, and I love video games for a passion, and my goal is to learn coding and to make mods to make video games more accessible. So I'm just curious, do you play video games?
So let me stop you there. So let's make that our second to last question, Katie, if we have one more after this. But yes, I meant to ask you that as well, Lucy. So talk to us about video games and accessibility.
Oh, I love video games, and I love video games, because it's something I've done for my entire life. Is I've actually played games, and it's not just video games. When I first got my first computer in the mid 80s, I played text adventures. And then different games came out that were available. And I've played last year's top title, for video gaming. If you look at the Games Awards, The Last of Us Part 2 was the top title in the world in 2020. And
That was a great game.
And I finished it. And I think gaming is going to be a really big thing for accessibility. In 2010, the FCC communications said that if any video game manufacturer wanted to continue to sell within the US, they had to actually make their games more accessible. And it's been fantastic. The gaming industry has stepped up, and it's really great. If you want to make accessible games and mods and so forth, I think you should look into the gaming community. There is a lot of people out there. Look at the Can I Play That website. Introduce yourself to people in that community, and they are the most friendly, wonderful people out there.
Can I Play That website? That's a website?
It's Can I Play That? And I think it's .org.
Okay, we'll look it up. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
Basically just, if you go into Google and type in, Can I Play That disability gaming, you will find that website. And there is a vibrant community of people with disabilities who, mostly what they do is they have reviews on the Can I Play That, but then you'll go to other communities and other groups of people. I'm currently playing a video game that I'm extremely addicted to. It's very bad for me because I spend more time on it than I should.
Which game is it?
Answer that question, Lucy, and then we're going to take one more question.
It's called Swamp.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for your question, Mary, and for participating.
I love video games. I could talk about this all day, but
all right.
Wait, just one more question. Do you play on Xbox?
I do not have an Xbox, no.
Oh, because I'd like to play with you.
All right, thank you so much. Do we have one more hand up there, Katie?
Let's see. We do not. At this
Okay.
moment.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for participating in Career Conversations. Again, this is our inaugural one. This recording will be on our YouTube page very shortly, and you're welcome to share it with your friends and say how cool this was. And next month, Gina Harper, Senior Vice President with Morgan Stanley, who is a financial consultant, will be with us. She will share with us all the cool things she does, as well as the things she does for play, cycling, windsurfing, as well as being a financial advisor. Really cool things. Again, I know her personally, a great presenter, and you won't be disappointed. February 3rd at the same time. Every month we'll be doing this in the space, and the recordings will be available afterwards. Lucy, once again, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today. Do you have any last minute words?
No, but thank you once again, Richard, for asking me, and congratulations on your new webinar series.
Thank you so much. Everybody have a good evening. This is the end of the webinar, and thank you so much. Thank you, Olaya and Katie.